Emily Dickinson is one of those odd geniuses of American literature. She lived for most of her life as a recluse in her home in Amherst, Massachusetts. And during the years when very few people saw her, she wrote hundreds, even thousands of poems, very few of which were published in her lifetime. When she was published, the works were punctuated and normalized according to the standards of the taste of the day. And it's been a real boon to Dickinson's reputation and understanding of her work to have her original punctuation and capitalization and such restored to her original intent. The poems for which she's most famous tend to be ones like I love to see it lap the miles, about the locomotive, or Because I Could Not Stop for Death, which is a strange poem about being accompanied by death to the graveyard. But there are others that have a more transparent sort of lyricism to them. And there's a huge range to the poetry in her canon. And one I want to do today is I suspect not as familiar. It's sometimes anthologized, but not as much as others might be. I think it's a delightful little poem with a way into the images of it that gives you a sense of Dickinson's very, don't want to say peculiar. I want to say it's a unique imagination. So here it is. A bird came down the walk. A bird came down the walk. He did not know I saw. He bit an angleworm in halves and ate the fellow raw. And then he drank a dew from a convenient grass, and then hopped sideways to the wall to let a beetle pass. He glanced with rapid eyes that hurried all abroad. They looked like frightened beads, I thought. He stirred his velvet head. Like one in danger, cautious, I offered him a crumb. And he unrolled his feathers and rowed him softer home. Then oars divide the ocean, too silver for a seam, or butterflies off banks of noon leap plashless as they swim. Several things just to notice about Dickinson's very vivid and personal imagination of these matters. Note her punctuation in the first line. A bird, comma, came down the walk. Why would she do that? I think she's imitating the way the bird came down the walk. A bird came down the walk. The sort of hesitancy, the way that a bird will have an almost jittery motion to it. The angleworm that he bites in halves and eats raw. And then Dickinson's curious use of nouns. He drank a dew. You don't think of dew as taking an article, nor do you think of a convenient grass in the way that Dickinson imagines it here. Notice that when she gets down to the fourth stanza, the third and the fourth, she's looking at the bird and his anxious eyes or rapid eyes that look like frightened beads. Notice, he stirred his velvet head. There's a period there. You might not notice it. You almost don't see it under that dash, but that's where the thought stops. He doesn't stir his velvet head like one in danger, cautious, as you might think. No, in fact, that goes over to the poet herself. Like one in danger, cautious, I offered him a crumb. So she's the one who's now bird-like and cautious in offering a crumb to this bird that came down the walk. And rather than take it, he unrolls his feathers. Wonderful almost unfurling of his feathers, and rode him softer home. Then the thought continues into the next stanza. Then oars divide the ocean, to silver for a seam. When the ocean is so placid that you don't want to break the surface in the way that you row, that's the way this bird rode him home. And then these last two lines that truly come out of nowhere. For butterflies off banks of noon. Uh, where does a poet's imagination come up with banks of noon? As though these were the banks of a stream that you leap from. Butterflies off banks of noon, plashless as they swim. Wonderful imagination.